We have two special guests today. We have Adam and we have Alex, and I'm gonna throw it to Adam first because I did a podcast earlier this morning with Adrian. He's from BC, so he didn't get this reference when I said I hope you have a good May 2-4. Now, Adam, when I say that, do you know what that means? Because
Of course.
Alex also did not know what it means.
That's interesting.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's the May 24 weekend. It's a long weekend, so and we got to open up a 2-4 and drink a 2-4 on May 2-4. So these BC boys, man, they're living in the past.
Yeah, they didn't know, and I literally Googled it, and it said it's a double entendre for May 24th, falling on May 2-4, falling on May 24th, and opening a case of 2-4, which is a popular during the long weekend. So yeah, so I thought that interesting. Alex didn't know what it meant, and Adrian didn't know, but I'm glad we got someone here who does. But Alex, out from BC right now, I believe that's where you are. How you doing today, my man?
Good. I'm enjoying my BC May long, or I'm about to enjoy my BC May long, but.
So it doesn't roll off the tongue the same way.
It depends. here we I guess we were less on the just cracking open a 2-4. Maybe it's more of a bottle of wine, go rip the car, get on the ferry, something like that. So it's different holidays, right? Maybe one day I'll head over to Ontario and we'll rip a couple of 2-4s in honor.
You're gonna find people that look like this. I just wore, and this is a tank top, by the way, but I just wanted to hide the guns, so we threw on the old David Spade look here. So. Yeah, so I mean, hopefully you guys are going to have a good May 2-4. But before we get into it, I appreciate you guys giving us some time to come on here to talk about the upcoming matches for the Canadian men's national team. Last time we saw them play, they qualified for the World Cup and then missed out on pot 3. So we got to wait a little bit. Got an Iran friendly coming up and 2 Nations League matches. So first off, Alex, we're going to go to you and we're going to basically just say, what are you looking forward to this window? What is one big outcome you want to take, whether it's specifically around the Iranian friendly or the 2 Nations League matches?
For me, it's a bit of a split priority, I'd say. I think there's kind of 2 main ones for me. I think the first one is tactical growth, tactical cohesion, chemistry, keeping things going with the group that there is, figuring out lineup combinations and trialing guys. So mostly stuff related to Qatar. There's a lot of roster questions in terms of the striker position, the center back position, heck, even the goalkeeper position a bit. I want to see as much clarity gleaned from those aspects as possible, continue to build off of what Canada did in the 20 or so games of qualifiers where they really started to stamp out an identity, stamp out a system. Otherwise, I just want to, see them contend for some trophies. I think if Canada wants to be a soccer nation, they want to be a top team in CONCACAF, you've got to start filling up the silverware cabinet, and they have a huge opportunity with Nations League. I think that and the Gold Cup, they need to start regularly making finals or at least competing for semifinals. So with the group that they have, there's no excuse for them to not at least make the semifinals, if not make the final and contend for the trophy. So those are kind of the 2 main things I'm looking at.
Yeah, seeing this national team obviously go on the rise it recently went on, qualifying for the World Cup, but there's still going to be that thing of starting to build history, and that's going to be competing in Gold Cups, winning silverware. We had a nice experience at the Nations League when we won against the United States. I think that was a big moment where some of us fans and potential newer fans took a look and like, okay, like there's something special that's going on here. So we're gonna look over at Calvary's new mascot, the Italian Stallion, and we're gonna ask you a question along the lines of, what are you looking forward to more, the friendly or the Nations League, and which one do you think that will be, I guess, a stronger looking squad could potentially be on the friendly as opposed to the Nations League, or vice versa?
I'm more looking forward to the friendly. Because this will be the first time in a very long time that the national team is playing a team outside of CONCACAF. Not that they've played Curacao in a long time, but I feel like you have that type of opponent. You played a Suriname, maybe you're going to give you a similar type of challenge. But to play a team from outside of the region, I mean, we've all been clamoring for this for a very long time, hoping for this moment to come. We weren't sure who it was going to be, and it ended up being Iran, which has its own set of controversies. But I'm very excited for this. I'm very excited for this opportunity for Canada to just see what they look like against one of the top teams in Asia, the top qualifying team in Asia, in a crowd that I would imagine will be pretty split, certainly more so than the Curacao match. And I think if I'm Herdman, I want to see my best against the Iran side, because I'm using that as preparation for World Cup qualifying. Or for the World Cup rather. I don't think Curacao is going to give you that same level of preparation. Obviously, there's points on the line, and it's a competitive match. It means something. And as Alex mentioned, you got to start winning trophies. So those matches they're not friendlies. They do mean something. But I like to think that with the depth of this Canadian national team, that there are some players, maybe a little bit rotated squad, might be able to still get the job done against a Curacao. And then maybe, you go a little bit more out with your A squad for the Honduras match. So those are the two that I'd prioritize, trying to get something on the road at San Pedro Sula and trying to put your best foot forward against a very feisty Iran side.
Yeah, I think that's very realistic, and I think it's kind of funny though, because I agree. I'm really excited for this upcoming match against Iran, because I said it in the previous recording Alex and I did, but it didn't last very long, that the last time Canada made it out or played a side outside of CONCACAF was back in January 15th, 2020, and they played Iceland in a friendly, very different squad, very different circumstances. And in my opinion, I mean, the Nations League was brought in to get rid of friendlies, and I think the Nations League in Europe and CONCACAF was a great idea. But I think friendlies leading up to a World Cup is different, because you get to see how you balance up against a side that you could potentially see, or a team that's going to be competing in the highest level that there is. So I think it's kind of interesting that we are praising a friendly a little bit more than a competitive match. But I do absolutely agree with that I'm assuming they're going to go all out against Iran, and then they're going to potentially look to switch it up for Curacao and then going on to Honduras. So just take a look at that Iranian match. I mean, obviously the controversy aside, we're not going to get into that. But Alex, what do you think about the matchup? Because I mean, did Canada, do you think, wait a little too long to find a friendly? Because in my eyes, Iran matches up really nicely against Canada because they're taking on the United States. I think for Iran, they couldn't have found probably a better friendly to take a look up. Looking at our group, a lot of times when you come up with friendlies, you want to come up with a side that maybe could play in a similar type of system. When I was looking at our group, I was really thinking like a side like Algeria would really match up similar. I know they didn't qualify for the World Cup, but I saw like a lot of similarities with them and Morocco. And considering we're taking on two European nations, not having one I thought was a little iffy. So I just wanted to get your overall result or thoughts on actually taking on Iran.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, it sounds like from what I heard, Canada was obviously shooting big. They were in talks with South American teams. They were in talks with top African teams. Didn't hear any names, but have to assume an Algeria and Egypt, a Senegal, all of those teams were in the mix. But ultimately, the reason why I think they're playing Iran is they needed to play games at BC Place because FIFA's delegation wants to go visit ahead of the World Cup venue selection. I think, for the most part, yes, that is written in stone, but they still want to conduct an official visit. And so what that meant was playing on turf, and playing on turf for some was seen as a hindrance. So that led to Iran coming. I think that's not a bad thing at all in terms of the competitive aspect of the playing standpoint. Iran's got some really solid players. They play a pretty balanced system. They are a bit more axed on the defensive side of things, but they have shown a lot of growth in the offensive side. I mean, they're led by the very dangerous Sardar Asmoon, who in over 50 caps for Iran's almost scored 50 goals, which is very, very good rate considering the amount of competitive, tough games that Iran's played over the last half decade since he's been on the team. And there's a few other players on that team offensively who will pose a threat. So, I mean, I think in terms of stylistic fit, it might not mimic necessarily some of the teams that play in the World Cup. So that is a good point. But I think that's also what the September window is for. One's going to be much closer to the actual World Cup. You're going to have an idea of a better idea of what Canada's squad is like. So I think this is a good way to kind of dip your toe in the water. And, maybe this would have been a reality check. You play a team like in Argentina, you get blown out the water. Maybe this isn't good for morale. So by playing Iran, they can kind of get a taste of that outside of, Europe or outside of North America opposition. I think they're vastly underrated. They showed at the World Cup that they can compete with the best. So I think this is going to be a good way for Canada to prove their credentials in a game where they'll also feel like they can at least compete for a draw, compete for a win, no matter how hard it will be. It will be a hard game, no doubt. This is, very on par with a Mexico or US. Iran's very much in that same realm of teams. So Canada's going to have to be at their best.
Yeah, I mean, I think Iran's got just as good of a shot as the U.S. and whoever that other European side is going out of that group into the next round. And I agree with you. I mean, there is another window. The opportunities are there to get other friendlies that maybe are a little bit more, I guess, tasty / would suit better who we were going to potentially play in the upcoming World Cup. But it came to a point where I was just happy a friendly was scheduled. It looked like a while there. We didn't know what was going to happen. So we got one in. It's a tough team. It's a team that's going to be competing in the World Cup. Well, there's some pros, there's some cons, but I am really excited for it. And looking at this potential window, because like we said, it's still ways out from the World Cup, we're going to potentially getting a look at maybe some surprise players that are going to come up, maybe some dual nationals. You guys are very aware, missing out on Marcelo Flores. I'll quickly get your guys' thoughts on that. For me, I never thought deep down that we really had a massive chance. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there were closer talks than I saw. I just felt like he was always closer to Mexico. There's the ties there, his father pushing. It hurt because we know how talented this kid could potentially be. But for me, it just kind of a bit of a wake-up call. We knew that the chance was there. It didn't happen. Let's start taking a look at potentially some other dual nationals. And this is the perfect opportunity to maybe call a Stefan Mitrovic, a Jefferson, someone to come up into this potential Nations League. So first, we're going to go over and we're going to take a look. Alex, who do you want to make one name, one dual national? Who do you want to see potentially get that shot? And I'm going to make Adam pick a different name. So whoever he says, he can't say that one. And then give me your thoughts on Flores. Were you upset or did you kind of see it coming?
Well, I'm going to throw Adam under the bus here because I'm going to go Stefan Mitrovic. For me,
one.
the list starts and ends with Stefan Mitrovic. So I'm curious to see who Adam's gonna pick. Other than that, because for me, he's the one dual national that you kind of need to make a move on now. He just finished a fantastic season with Radniki Nish, scored 10 goals as a 19-year-old attacking midfielder. A lot of them big goals in big games. He sounds like he's going to make a transfer move abroad. There's that Serbia interest. This is kind of one where if you don't move now, it feels like Serbia is going to snap him up sooner rather than later. So I think in terms of that, and as well as the fact that he's ready, he's playing first team football, he's playing senior football. It's one where you have to make a move on. And that kind of ties into my idea of Flores. I mean, I was always intrigued by the possibility, could Marcelo Flores play for Canada? Of course, you'd love that. Any kid who's playing in the Arsenal Academy at 18, making the U23 team, scoring goals regularly, playing in the first team, it's a talent. There's no doubt. But for where Canada was at in their cycle, he was always just a bit too green for me. It's just a matter, maybe had he come around at the beginning of the cycle, you kind of like the way Liam Miller was integrated in when he was still with Liverpool's youth academy. It would have made a lot of sense, but this was what Canada's developed a lot in the last 4 years. They've gone from the point where they were taking anyone who was just because you're in a big academy, you put him in. Remember Alessandro Busti, for example, when they cap-tied him just because he was in the Juventus academy. They've moved long past that point and needed guys who were playing. And unfortunately, Flores wasn't playing. So as long as he wasn't playing at a senior team level, it wasn't too much of a rush for me. So if he wants to rush his future, he wants to commit it to Mexico, it kind of shows where his heart was at anyway. So for me, while it will be a bit of a loss on the field, I think long-term, because Flores is definitely going to be at worst a pretty good player and has the potential to be much more. I just think for where Canada was at, they need guys like Mitrovic, guys who are playing at a top flight, guys who can contribute now.
Yeah, and the one thing I like about Steph is honestly it's versatility. And if you know something about John Herdman, he asks his players to play in a position, and it doesn't matter where it is. We've seen Alphonso Davies play as a striker, and having that versatility, be able to play on the wing, through the middle, at the 10, he can do a little bit of everything, and he'd be a very important player, I think, to come in. And I think that there's a good chance if you gave him that opportunity, he'd take it and he could thrive and get some decent minutes. So he is the obvious pick. So throwing Adam under the bus, now it's time to see which direction he went.
It's the other name. I'm going to say Daniel Jefferson. And I think it's actually a good time for Jefferson. And the reason I say that is he got called back up to the parent club, Sheffield United, and hasn't really gotten a run of matches. I think in his mind, he was a 17-year-old initially when he made his Premier League debut and scored. And I think when you're 17, you come in, you score against Everton at Goodison Park, you probably feel like the world's your oyster and the world's at your feet and you could play for any national team in the world. And I don't think he can't, for the record, but I just think now, we're almost 2 years removed from that and reality is set in a little bit. And the idea of how far England actually is has maybe set in as well. I think it's an opportunity to integrate him. He's not going to be called to your World Cup squad, but I do think it's a great chance to get him into this group and to get him feeling like, hey, this is the national team I want to represent in the future. So obviously I would have picked Mitrovic too. But yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense actually time-wise for Jefferson because you don't really have to worry about England and you can just focus on getting him into your setup and then not really ever making it much of a competition should he, develop and become the player we think he might.
Now the striker role is an interesting one for me because doesn't matter. We've seen this season, Kyle Larin not having near as good as a season as the previous one. Jonathan David probably will finish around 15 goals. He had 2 very long scoreless streaks. So these 2 players at club level have struggled a little bit this season, but they've never really struggled that much for the national team. Both of them are serial scorers. We've seen that. We also now have Ugbo, who's in a bit of form as well. We also have Cavallini, who is starting. I mean, he's making the money to do it. He's starting to find the back of the net. So we do have a decent striker pool there. I do think Jefferson would be an interesting one to at least try to come in, and maybe there's a situation. I'm going to throw it to Alex, see if maybe he thinks this as well. If you're going to get a player like Jefferson and show him the ropes, maybe here with a Curacao match, a few minutes off the bench, if you're able to convince him, I think it's smart. But would the potential of Jonathan David maybe having a potential transfer stop him for featuring, or do you think he's going to more likely be here for the entire window? Because we know that there's rumors. We've seen Fabrizio say that there's big teams looking at him. He wants this move. I think he needs this move. And if it comes in a time where, well, there's matches for Canada, I'm assuming he's going to try to want to finish this so his next season is secure and can play leading up to World Cup. So, Alex, what is your thoughts on a potential transfer for David, and could it open the door for a striker to get a look at?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously something that's looming over. I mean, I imagine that right now talks are going on. No Jonathan David, he'll want to come to Canada's camp for as long as possible, for as much as possible. I think anyone who wants to be in the World Cup squad understands that this is kind of there's no Gold Cup this summer. There's nothing this summer to look forward to. This is it until late September. So if you want to really, obviously Jonathan David's place is secure for next year. Let's not kid ourselves, but this is an important time to gel. Because like you mentioned, the striker pool is getting deeper. Ike Ugbo for me he's gone past the point of knocking on the door. He's burst it down. Is just waiting for someone to look his way. So with the striker pool the way it is, I think Jonathan David can come and play when he can. And should the transfer happen, he could go, and maybe that could pave the way for Daniel Jefferson, knowing that David might have to go. I mean, I think already the striker pool is very deep, whereas if you lose David, you still got Larin, Ugbo, Cavallini all in great form. And then, there are some other names on top of that. But if you're Canada, who you're going to call up as the next option normally would be Teshuak Akindele. Great. We know what Teshuak Akindele is at this point. We know what, if needed, what he can bring. Bringing Jefferson in, should he accept, I think is great. The only one annoyance, I suppose, out this window is that any chance for window shopping would come in that Iran match. And given how big of a match it is, it really limits Canada. Because the thing is, if Jefferson sees the field in Curacao or Honduras, he's cap-tied. Because given the fact that he's already played at the youth levels for England, that's big ask for an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid to say, okay, you're ready to commit your future just by playing 5 minutes. I mean, I guess with the new rules, or no, not even, because it's a one-time switch, so it's so complicated. I think it would have been nice, say, if it was like the friendly was at the end and you could kind of let him there and then throw him in at the end and be like, okay, play your friendly. There's no risk. So I think logistically it might be hard to bring in Jefferson because of that. But I think ideally, ignoring that, I think this would be a great opportunity because of, not just David, Larin's potential future as well could leave the need for more strikers in the squad.
Very, very recent reports. I don't know how legit they are, but I mean, there has been rumors that he may re-up with Besiktas, so that's a little interesting to keep an eye up on there. But I mean, all honestly, from my opinion, I love talking about dual nationals. I love talking about the recruitment because we've done so well at doing it. But in reality, I don't think Jefferson's ready to make that decision yet, and I don't even know if John Herman would potentially bring him up, but I hope he does, because I'm always up for strengthening the depth pool. I'm always up for it. And I think this would be a good opportunity. But like you said, I mean, he is still very young, Alex. I don't know if that decision is right on the cards, but we can always hope. He's always a player that's going to be there. He's always a player we're going to probably keep bugging until a decision is finally made. But now let's focus on a player, and I kind of want to focus around the winger position, because, I mean, Liam Miller, having the injury that he had, I think that might open the door. And two players that come to mind for me is Brim, who I think has had an excellent season at Eindhoven. He's been called up in the national team before. He's got that experience, and so does Corbiano. Obviously, I mean, he scored for the national team. Both of them can play in that winger position. Both could be a potential replacement for Liam Miller for this upcoming window and try to wiggle their way in there and impress. Which one of the two do you think is more likely, Adam? You're muted, buddy.
I figured it out.
There you go.
I've got some dog stuff going on in the background, so I'm
That's
doing this
okay.
for the sake of your show. I more likely is tricky, because I think more likely might be Brim with his current form, but I prefer Corbianu. I think his upside for me is a little higher. If I had my way, I would want Corbianu, but I think Brim actually will get a call. He's doing everything right. His team is my understanding is the team's fighting for promotion right now. I don't know how realistic that's looking as of in the last couple of matches I haven't been following, but I know that they were close. And so certainly if he's producing next year in the Eredivisie and, at his age, like he's going to be right in the mix with your Ugbos and your top tier guys in terms of your forward options. So I don't know. I think both will get a call. But I tend to prefer Corbianu, but I don't think you can ignore what Brim's doing right now. So I think he'll be there.
I think if he's able to play in the Eredivisie next season, that would be massive. Now, for those who don't know, he is played the first leg. They lost 2-1, so the second leg to go. If they win that, they go on and play the final. If they win that, they go and they get into the Eredivisie. And it's interesting that Hercules, which is the Eredivisie side who finished in the promotion position, lost 3-0 in their first match. So it kind of shake things up. It kind of looks like there's going to be a club coming from the second division to make their way up there. So it could very well be Eindhoven. But Alex, what about you? Between the two, or is there a name that I didn't mention? I mean, maybe if you want to toss Edwards, because he could play a little bit further up the pitch. Is there an out and out type winger that you think could be a replacement for Miller in this upcoming camp? And if so, who?
Yeah, well, I guess if we're going to assume that Miller's out, I think it would be a good opportunity for Brim, just given that he's young. What he's shown with this year with FC Eindhoven, I think would be just good to show, because even if he doesn't get promoted, surely clubs in top leagues will look at what he did. He was playing as a right winger. He's not always a number 9, a second striker. And the fact that he moved out of position and went and scored, I think he's up to 9 goals now on the year, is very impressive in the second division for a guy who, based on his club situation in the past, this is one of his first full years in a professional environment. So while he's a bit older at 23, I think it is now, he's done enough where I think his future is very promising, and I think it would make sense for Canada to look at him. But if I'm looking at like-for-like replacements for Liam Miller, that right-footed, who loves to cut inside, who's been so dangerous this year, for me, I'd love to write in a vote for Richie Laryea.
I think knew he was going to say it.
I just the way he's been playing for the Novgorod, I may have absolutely butchered that. It would be interesting to see what he can bring, just because he started hot, hit that wall, came back from the winter break refreshed. Maybe he hasn't gotten the production as much, but he's been playing consistently. What I like from him is every time you check in on him, he's playing a new position. He's normally a striker, but he'll play left wing, left back, left mid, number 10. Like, that screams John Herdman to a T, does it not? And the fact he's playing in a top division is always exciting. So I think if you're looking like for like replacements, this could be the chance just to take a look at him, because long term, I think as well, the future is promising for him. He's technically on loan to the Russian first division, so who knows what his future is going to look like. But based on what he's shown that he can hang. I guess I understand logistically, if politically there are reasons why he can't leave the country, and then maybe this kind of renders it moot. But assuming if they were able to call him, I would also like to see Richie Laryea give a look, because while Brim maybe has the overall production over him, Eden is playing in a top flight. And then a quick word on Corbianu. The nice thing is he is cap tied. I love his future. It's just right now he has things to figure out in his game. He's still young. He needs that professional experience. He's very, very raw. The talent is oozing out of both of his boots. It's just figuring out how to put it all together. The good thing is he's cap tied. He's going to be a star in 2026. You don't have to rush him. So I think that is a bonus of having him. If he was uncapped tied, all of a sudden this would be a very interesting discussion. But good thing is they secured that with that game against Bermuda last year. So we don't even have to worry about him in that sense.
And I believe Richie Laryea is eligible for Ghana as well. Obviously, another World Cup side that could potentially come looking at him. I don't see why they wouldn't give him a sniff as well. And yeah, there's a lot to like about Laryeia's game. I mean, the Russian league is a solid league, political reasons aside. I pronounce it as Nizhny Novgorod. Maybe I'm correct.
I think we'll probably
we'll find out.
I like that. It sounded right.
Sounded right. That's all that matters. But yeah, he's interesting. I do think he's an interesting one. And the thing I like about Laryea is that he's a workhorse, and he's been given a lot of minutes, and he hasn't always been the most productive, which shows that he has been a part of this team on and off the ball, which I think is a big thing for John Herdman. I'd like to see him get a little bit more finish to his game, because I think if he wants to really take on that number 9, it'll be useful. And if he isn't able to take on that number 9, then like you said, he can drop back down. He can play in that dual 10. He can play on the wings. I think there is a player in there. So that's an interesting shout, guys. But we have one final question for the two of you, and it's going to be, a prediction / what do you kind of want to see? What are the results that you'd like to see out of these 3 matches? And then give me your prediction. Just don't have to give me the score. Just win, draw, loss. Adam, we'll start with you.
I think they're going to beat Iran.
Okay.
I have a good feeling about it at BC Place. I do think it's also a little bit more familiar playing surface to the Canadian team. They've played at BC Place before, many of them. And for the ones who haven't, they certainly have played in MLS. A lot play in MLS. A lot are familiar with turf pitches. So maybe that's a slight advantage. Iran have 2 danger men. I know you mentioned Azmoun earlier, who's a great player, great finisher, but also Taremi from Porto, another great player. So those are their 2 guys. I know they have this reputation for being a defensive side, but they certainly can cause a lot of harm when they do attack with those 2 guys primarily. I like the matchup for Canada, though, because I feel like it's the kind of match that Canada can have a little bit more possession and hopefully build a bit of a flow as the match goes on. And so I think I'm going to go 2-1 win over Iran, 2-0 win over Curacao, and I think a draw at San Pedro Sula.
The Italian stallion. I said, do not have to give scores. He went the extra distance and he gave them anyways. I like it. All right. Alex, what about you?
For me in the Iran game, I think logically, given their standing, given Canada hasn't played a team outside, I'm looking for good performance. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a friendly. This is the first time in a long time that Canada can head into a game and not have to worry about the result they pick up, meaning or mattering for FIFA ranking or standings or goal difference or some nonsense. So I think it'll be good for them just to go out and play. So because of that, I'm going to be more axed on the performance. And then in the other 2 games, I think you want wins. You want, Curacao, great team, super underrated in my opinion, but I still think you should beat them at home. Honduras away, never easy, I know, but you have done it once. Honduras recently got a new coach again, because they're obviously recycling. They're probably going to bring in a younger squad. You still should go out there and prove that, losing or drawing there would be a tiny bit of a step back that I don't think Canada, should be taken. I don't think Herdman will want them to take. So I'm going in, for those 2, I'm thinking wins. And then the first one, if I'm going to predict, because I'll follow Adam in that route, I'll predict a win in the first game, just because Canada, we have to remember, it's not outrageous. Canada hasn't drawn or lost at home since like 2017 or 2016. Like, it's been a while. They tend to win at home, and they've played some good teams at home. Mexico, US, you name it, they beat them all at home. So I'm going to go 2-1 win over Iran. I'm going to go over Curacao. I'm going to sway slightly from Adam and go 3-1. I do think Curacao has the power to nab a goal. They are that good, but Canada should throw out their big guns and get a few. And then last one, Honduras. Let's go another 1-0. So not quite the 2-0 they got the other time, but I think Honduras, they just don't have enough in attack. I know they have Alberto Lis, they have Romel Kyoto, et cetera, but if Canada was able to neutralize them last time around, I'm not too worried. And then Canada does nab a lucky goal. I'll admit it, probably a lucky goal away. It's Honduras. It's never pretty. And then they complete the 3-for-3 window. It's ambitious, I know, but I think based on the fact that 2 games are at home and who they're playing away, it's realistic for them.
Yeah, no, definitely realistic. I was going to go the old Canada special, 1 win, 2 draws there. But I mean, you guys are talking up a lot. So I'll go 1-1 draw with Iran. I don't know why that result was just screaming out. And then I think Curacao, like you said, I think it'll be like a 2-1 type match. I think they'll get the job done at home. And then a 2-0 match against Honduras. I just think there's a lot of transition going on there, and they should be able to get the job done. So where the points matter, they take 6, and then a nice little draw, and hopefully learn a lot against that Iran match, boys. But I appreciate you guys coming on today. This was a really fun one. You guys all dressed to impress. I'm talking about myself as well, but hopefully a lot more content coming up, guys, because it's going to be a busy June, and hopefully you guys enjoy your long May 2-4 weekend. Take care, guys. Drop a like, drop a sub, and we'll see you soon. Cheers, friends.